Hello lovely people, I'm K3N and welcome to this week's episode of Park Home Life. In this episode I'm going to show you a little tour of the last exhibition for the year and probably for a little while that I'm involved in, which is called Untold Stories, so that will be coming up first. Then we're going to go for a little walk outside with Stella and up a lane somewhere new. And then I'm going to give you a little tour of what I've been doing. You wouldn't think there was much else to do in here, but I still seem to manage to keep coming up with things. And then I'll come back at the end and have a further little chat with you about, I don't know, stuff. A witter. I'll come back for a witter. So enjoy the exhibition tour and the walk and the tour. The home tour. That sounds, like a stately home tour. The park home tour. And I'll see you at the end. So here we are at our exhibition, my group CQ West exhibition at Shaftesbury Art Gallery in Shaftesbury in Dorset. The board there tells a little story about each of us. So I'll just show you around. This was the evening that we'd hung it, so I mean obviously we've got the lights on, but it's a bit dark here and there, apologies. This is a little eco-printed bag I made. Hanging in the window is this banner on chiffon that I printed along with Chrissy in her studio. Well, she did the screen printing and then we went and made splodgy marks on it just to bring it to life. So I'll just give you a little tour. Now this exhibition is an opportunity for all of us to show work that isn't necessarily textile. Some of it is textile. You see here the piece on the right, that's Marion's work. You see, she's a felter primarily. I think there's a bits of felt trapped in there, but it's kind of a weaving. And I think also there's a hydrangea petals. But then this work of Fran's, this is painting and possibly collage. I don't know this work very well because we tend not to share, we only share textile work in the group. So the work that we do that isn't textiles about each other, that's my excuse anyway. This drawing of the jugs, this is actually done on cloth. I just loved this. As we were hanging it, I just kept being drawn to the shapes and the colours. There's some more of Fran's work, I believe. We hadn't put the labels on yet, so I'm not sure whose is whose. I didn't hang this side, I hung the other side. That's another textile piece. And there again, that's also textiles. It's quite hard to film without the lights reflecting. I just love the shape of this bag. And on the table underneath are some of Sylvia's sketchbooks, some of Stephanie's little bags and various other bits and bobs, some of Wendy's natural dyed cloth there as well, I think. This is Rachel's work. Rachel's very much inspired by nature and the natural world. A lot of her work features these seed heads. And underneath we've got some more beautiful brightly coloured sketchbooks. I'm not going to show you what's in that cupboard apparently. Some more of Rachel's work. And as we come around here, now I do zoom in and show you this quite closely because I know most of you, or if not all of you, are textile people. And this is Sylvia's work coming up now, the two long banner-shaped pieces on the left. And I will go in closer and show you the stitching so that you can see the texture that she creates with all this heavy, heavy stitching. You see the ripple effect in the cloth there with the parallel running stitch. It's just beautiful. And then very subtle colour changes, not bright colours, but just enough to give interest to the background. But it's mostly just done with changing direction of the stitch, changing the placement of the stitch. You see the seed stitch there on the right, and then the running stitch on the more blue area. And the stem, I believe, is couched on. And then that panel on the left there, do you see with the stitches that are lined up to give that ridge effect? It just shows you how many different effects you can get just with very simple stitches. And this piece here, she had made all but the blue circles in the middle, the blue wibbly wobbly circles. And I'm sure she won't mind me telling you, she also visited Judy Martin at the Festival of Quilts Gallery, and was very inspired by her work and went back and looked at this piece and realised what it needed was to have that blue cord couched down. So that's what she did, and it just has brought the whole piece to life. But again, behind all those blue squiggles, lots of stitching. These are little landscapes by one of our members we call her Wendy J, because we've got two Wendys. We have a Wendy J and a Wendy W. And she paints on the cloth and then stitches over the top these lovely little autumnal or winter almost landscapes. I love the way these were framed as well, with the weathered wood and the ochre coloured mount card behind. They just look wonderful. So going round, moving around the corner in this little alcove here, we've got this piece by Judith, blue and white as you see. These joyous little birds that just look like they're dancing to me. They seem to be actually moving. I'm going a bit closer with this bottom one here. And along the bottom there you see the shapes that she's made, very much in keeping with the Indian textile tradition of the torans that go over doorways. If you've seen tours of my home, you'll see I have quite a few of them hanging about the place. These little pieces here are Chrissy's work. Here she paints on cloth, excuse me, she paints on cloth and then free machine stitches over the top. This middle one, to me it looks like a cityscape at night in the rain, and the little bright yellow blotches are the lights in the buildings. And this one at the bottom is sort of earthy ochre tones. And here she's divided the strip and then stitched it back together, which gives an interesting effect. And there's some of her books underneath. Moving slowly so you don't get seasick. I hope and think I finally learnt how slowly you do have to move when you're filming, so that it's pleasant to watch, I hope. There's another piece of Judith's, it's a plique, obviously a still life. And if you can see in the background, I don't know if I do go in closer. Do I? Can't remember. It was last night. Yes, I do. It's all seed stitching again. And like Sylvia, she's kind of varies the colour ever so slightly. You see in the bottom left-hand corner, the stitches are darker. And I noticed a loose thread and I picked it off. And going in a curve sort of around the base of the piece, just slightly darker thread in the stitching. It's very subtle, but it makes a big difference. And the kind of stylized flowers there, lovely. And this piece is a kind of abstract landscape, and as I pull back you'll see there's a figure sitting at the bottom. And this is called These Are My Starry Solitudes. And I must ask Judith about this because I don't exactly know, but there are all kinds of words stitched. You see Mary Poppins there on the left, and ballet shoes, and so on. Words stitched into the landscape. And this is Alicia's vibrant work. There's two smaller pieces on the right, and then the two larger pieces are called Hearts and Minds. The one on the left is called Hearts, and the one on the right is called Minds. So now going along to the other end of the gallery, here is yours truly's work coming up. I put in these two little wall-mounted textile pieces. This one here you see is mostly rust printed, and some tannin printing on the darker rectangle, and then it's stitched and stitched and couched, and other bits stitched on, vintage lace and so on. And then this other much darker piece was also eco printed, and then put in rust printed and then put in iron so that it became really dark. And then I just kind of responded to the shapes in the cloth with my stitching, and let the stitching spill out onto the quilted background. And a Fredfred hair I spotted on the black. And I also put in some of the journals that you may have seen, because I can't keep everything. So I offer them and see, I can always take them home again, of course. That was the one I made actually when I was at Chrissy's, my friends, in the summer. This is the Fairy Journal, which if you're one of my Ko-fi supporters, you will have seen me working in. I don't think I've ever showed, sorry about the bleep, I don't think I've ever showed that square journal, but it's about Dutch sailing ships, and if you know anything about me, you might know why I want to lose it. You may recognise the hexagon bowls, a couple of Borrow-inspired journals. That's a little cloth journal at the bottom there, and some little junk journals. They're made out of upholstery sample scraps and various bits of paper inside, packaging paper and so on. So that's my little display. Oh, and here on the easel, this is I've put two pieces in like this. This one's on display, the other one's in a browser rack. This is collage, painted, all scrap paper, an old book page and so on, and then with some cloth elements over the top. Sorry for the cellophane, it is eco-friendly cellophane. I was obliged. I don't like it, but there you go. Yeah, so I've put those two in. I really loved making these. I did it following a workshop, an online course I did with an artist called Kate Thompson, a paid course. I cannot paint faces like that. That's a big cheat. It's actually an image transfer, black and white, and then I painted the colour with watercolours. So you get the form and the shape there for you, and then you just colour it in basically, but it's very effective. These etchings are by Rachel, the little birds and again some seed heads. And over here, this necklace, I think Lucy said it was 15 feet long, the necklace you see draped there. And she also makes smaller wearable versions, which are on the rack there with the scarves you can just see at the bottom right hand corner. And my reflection of my boots in the window. And then on the pillars in the middle, these are Stephanie's lino cut pieces. Very striking with the black frames. And there are two pillars, I think, holding the roof up, I assume. So it was just a very good place to frame these, to hang these little smaller framed pieces. I'm trying not to give a carousel effect so that you don't get dizzy. Little street scenes. And that's the clock bonging. And then underneath there's another little basket of goodies. I think this is all Wendy Jump's work as well. It says Wendy Jump on there. And here's the poster with all the, all the information you need. So if you need to pause and read everything. So I just wanted to share a little bit of another walk that we do when we don't fancy the woods. Well, just for a change. It's just up this little lane. And you can do a circuit. This lane goes right through onto a paved road, which I've done a few times, and there's no cars on it, so, well, there could be cars, but I've not yet seen one, let's say. But this is a lovely lane between farm fields, but it's got beautiful hedgerows either side. I'll just show you some of the, mostly hazel, some hawthorn, and you see in there lots of ivy growing. Just wonderful wildlife, not only wildlife havens, but also kind of wildlife superhighways. So they can work their way around the monoculture fields within the hedgerows, if that makes any sense. Some field maple there, clipped as a hedge. There are field maples in the woods as trees, but here you see they're clipped as hedge. These hedges are clipped and not laid. The traditional old country craft of hedge laying has pretty much died out, I think, with the advent of machinery. Although you do see kind of demonstrations at agricultural fairs and little competitions of people hedge laying. Stels, where's your ball now? Sorry, she had a tennis ball that one of my friends gave her. And she insists on carrying it everywhere, but now she's dropped it. Stels, where's your ball? Where's your ball? Where is it? Is it far back? Where's your ball? There, I see it there, look. Fetch it. No, further. Stella, go back. Stels, go back. Where's your ball? Go on. I'm going to have to get it, aren't I? Go on, where's your ball? Go on, go back. Stels, no, it's not in there. Where is it? Further. Further back. Where's your ball? There we go. Good girl, come on then. There we go, we've got the ball. I will be turning around and coming back, so I could have just left it there. But you see that this lane has kind of got natural stone cobbly surface. Excuse my shadow, the sun's behind me, I can't do anything about it. Just grateful to have a bit of sun. I've had a lot of rain here. Not as much rain as some of you have been having, I know, and the high winds. We had Storm Ashley, but it mainly hit the north of the country. And nowhere near as severe as you've had it over in the States. I hope you're all safe and well. I guess if you're watching this means you've got Wi-Fi, so you're the safe and well ones. So what was I saying? Oh, there's a little wild rose, look there. I love looking at hedges. I mean, you can look at the glory of the whole thing as you look up the lane. You know, and the way the lane curves out of sight, and the beauty of the sky, and the two almost solid looking walls of the hedges. But then if you look into the hedgerow itself... Oh, so I was talking about hedge laying, wasn't I? I think I said everything I needed to say. I think I said everything I know about hedge laying. But no, just to summarise, if you don't know, hedge laying is when they take the stem of the hedge plant and they lay it almost horizontally, and they kind of semi-break through the stem at the base but leave some attached. So then that maintains the hedge from the ground up. Oh, there's a birdie in there. Sorry to disturb you, little bird. So you get a thick, stock-proof hedge, and it's very time-consuming, you know, done by hand. It's kind of, you could say it's slow hedging, and what they do now with machinery is not slow hedging. Anyway, this little tableau here. See this one little sort of square yard of hedge. What can we see? Well, I can see wild rose, dog rose. I can see ivy with the buds forming. I can see red berries, which are, I think they're honeysuckle. They'll either be honeysuckle or, oh, come on, Catherine. Traveller's Joy, wild clematis. Without climbing up the bank, I can't be sure. And if I climb up the bank, I might fall down. There's nettles in there. Nettles are very important for many species of butterfly. See the nettles? There's some hart's tongue fern growing here at the base. You see there the hart's tongue fern, so named obviously because it's shaped like a tongue. More ivy. So it is worth it when you're out and about, and not necessarily in a natural landscape, but in any landscape, to look in close, you know? We tend to look at kind of overall vistas as we're walking along because we need to look in front of us so we don't trip over our feet. Have you got your balls there? Good girl. Don't leave your ball. So if you leave it, it's littering, isn't it? Yeah, so we tend to look either just in front of us on the ground so we don't trip over if we're walking through rough ground, or we look up and ahead at the vista. But to actually stop and look in detail up close, there's there's always a thing, isn't there, called active looking. And we talked in last Monday's Slow Stitch about using all the senses in stitching, and how as humans we're very much visual animals. But we see, but sometimes we don't look, if that makes sense. So I just think it's very lovely and mindful if you're, going about your day, even in your own home, to actually look actively at just a little small square foot or square yard of the world. Look at the things that are in it, the textures, the colours, the smells, all the scent, the sounds. There's a little, see this? I can touch it and I'm not stung, because it's not nettle. Nettle's urtica. There's nettle. It's known as dead nettle because it doesn't sting you, but it's actually Lamium is its Latin name. Got the beautiful flowers on it. You see the flowers on the Lamium family have like a little porch roof. See if I can show you gently. Do you see those little bits sticking out at the top there? It's like a little porch roof for a bee. And then underneath is like a little, sorry it makes it go blurry, a little slipway or a little entrance step, so the bee can get her little furry body in there, or he, it's mostly the male bees that work. Sorry. Get his body in there, be sheltered by the little porch roof, and get at all the nectar. And then in turn, obviously, he picks up the pollen on his legs, goes off to the next flower and for nectar, and the pollen comes off, doesn't it, and pollinates the other flower. Isn't nature magical? So that's Lamium, dead nettle, and quite beautiful. Who would call that a weed? See, even down here, Stells! Sorry, she's gone into the field, which she's not supposed to do. Stells, come on! Stells, come on! Where's your ball? Stella! Stella, hurry up! Come on! Hurry up! Stells, here! She can't find the way back through it. There she is. Now you stay this side. I'm talking to the lovely people about bees and Lamium. Excuse me. And now I've got a frog in my throat from shouting. You see down at the base there, at the junction between the leaves lower down the stem, that's the seed head starting to form. I mean, that is also beautiful. And even, you know, the dead petals laying where they've fallen. It's a little weed, if you remember Bill and Ben. But it's such beauty when you stop to look. Yeah, little Lamium. And there's lots of them all along here. So you can look in close and then you can pan out. I mean, you know, I don't mean with a camera necessarily, unless you want to. And look further away. And then back to the overall view of the hedge. She's gone again. She'll come back in a minute. And that's often how I look when I go to art exhibitions. I look at, you know, from further back at a piece, and then I move in closer, and then I move right in until I've got my nose nearly pressed up against it, and then I move back out, active looking. So I hope you enjoyed that little view of a little square yard of Dorset hedgerow. And I'll now go and try and get Stella back. Well, I got Stella back, luckily. There she is. I just wanted to show you this. This is one of the first things I learnt about nature as a child growing up in Britain. Here are nettles on the left. Those are nettles, in case you're not, you know, I don't know if you have nettles in other countries, that sting you if you touch them. They have hairy barbs on their stems and the undersides of their leaves. And they sting, and I know because I fell off a gate when I was a child into a huge patch of nettles and got stung all over. And then growing next to them, these large-leaved plants, that's dock, Rumex. And you often find the two growing together because they like the same kinds of conditions. But also, for nettle stings, if you take a dock leaf and rub it up in your hand, I'll show you, the dock won't mind if I take one of its leaves. If you take a dock leaf, if you're in England or if you're in Britain, I expect you know this, and you scrumple it up in your hands, and in its leaf is a chemical that's mildly astringent and anti-itching. And you do that, and then you rub that on your nettle sting, and it alleviates the itch and the burn. Nettles and dock. It's like yin and yang, isn't it? The stinger. I just heard a cock pheasant rising. I've let all the pheasants out probably because they've probably started shooting around here. Stells, and now she wants to go and put up pheasants. You're not chasing pheasants. Poor little things. Anyway, that's something else. Yeah, so nettles and dock. Yes. So if you get stung by a nettle, if you're somewhere where you're not used to being and you don't know, and you get stung by nettles, nearby you'll almost invariably find some dock. Rub some of that on, and it will make you feel better. Okay, so I've had a major move around of the room. I'm standing here in the kitchen. If you've watched before, it's completely different. I had a brainwave. Well, it started with my desk. I wasn't happy with the videos that I kept going out of shot because the ring light was clamped onto the back of the desk. And I wasn't very happy sitting in the evenings being able to see all that. And the room felt a bit like a corridor because the furniture was down each side. It's a long rectangle. Well, it's a rectangle rather than a square. So I had the idea of putting the sofa as a sort of room divider. So it's there with Stella sleeping on it. And so now I have moved the television and the big chest of drawers with the television on it. I was just having a cup of tea, it still sat there. Over to that corner. There. So this Stella's end of the sofa is where that little lambskin rug is, sheepskin rug. You see that she is not on it, but anyway, and this is my end of the sofa. And it's just, I don't know, when I sit here, it just feels more comfortable, the way I'm looking. It's a little bit like my bedroom, you know, when I went on about my bed being in the wrong place. It's just what makes you feel happy and comfortable, isn't it? It may well change again, but at least I'll have something to show you every fortnight if I keep moving the furniture around. So nothing's really changed here where the clock is. The bookcase is still there in the corner. And I've put the little rocking chair in there, and Stella's toy box underneath, and I've put another rug down. And then if I go into there, sorry for the wobbles, if I go into this corner and gently turn, you'll see that the chest of drawers that was in my bedroom is now in here. And now in my bedroom is the blanket box that was under this window. I'll show you in a minute. I've got the chair there in front of the door because in winter I won't use that door. And we'll see what happens, you know, when summer comes. Probably it'll all be different again anyway. So now my desk area is here. So there's two advantages. One, like I said, is it's behind me, so I'm not looking. I mean, I'm quite tidy, but you know, it's behind me, so I'm not looking at it. And my sewing machine can stay under there now. You know, it's. But the other big advantage is you see how much natural light I've got there. So I think that'll be lovely. I'll be able to make videos without the light on probably. And I've now rearranged the camera stand so that when I swing that light out, I should stay in frame better than I have been doing of late. And then the last thing I really want to show you in here is what I've done on this window, because it was some curtains that were here when I moved in. And you see that's my kawandi hanging there, which I've made into a blind. Stella, stop it. Sorry, she's licking her foot again. Yes, I made it into a blind. So I had to modify it. It was the wrong shape. It was square and it needed to be a rectangle. I have put a step-by-step video on my Ko-fi page. For those of you who support me there, you can, you know, if you want to see that in more detail, how I made that. But basically, I've just put a batten up with some Velcro. I'll just show you quickly. Sorry if it goes blurry and wobbly. So you see there's a batten there with Velcro. Do you see that? And then I put the sewy part of the Velcro on the back of the quilt and the hooky part on the batten. And then all I've done to roll it up is I've just sewn some brass rings to the front, and then this ribbon goes right round to the back to the same place. And then through the bottom, my hands are quite disgusting. I didn't think you'd be able to see them. I've been messing about with rusty stuff for another thing that I've got in the pipeline that will come up at one point very soon. Through the bottom is a little sleeve. Get it in frame, Catherine. The fooler out the way. Do you see there's a little sleeve stitched to the bottom? That's the bottom of the blind. I won't let it down. And through there is a wooden dowel. You know, some of that wood that's roundy wood and long and thin. So yeah, I'm very happy with that. Now it's on display, I can see it, and it's serving a function as a blind. So, you know, there's a thought if you've got quilts or larger textiles hanging about, you can turn them into blinds. And then I've got my singer treadle is just there with my tins with my threads and some rice bags. And I've also started recently, the other evening, I just felt like it, crocheting some granny squares. There's a couple of books that I'm looking at the moment for future Monday projects, so a little clue of what might be coming up. So I'll just go through and show you the bedroom. I'll stop and start because the kitchen looks like, as my granny would have said, looks like a bomb's hit it. So the only thing that's changed in here is, there's Stella, Fredfred's out somewhere, is that I've put that blanket box there. I at the moment this radiator is turned off, and if it does ever get turned on, if it gets cold enough, I shall just pull that forward a bit. And I took the wardrobes out, you saw that before, and I've got these were just flat packed, you know, wardrobes. Well, it's a wardrobe that I put together myself, and it's white, so it's low-key in this small room. It's not my favourite kind of material for a wardrobe, but you know, it doesn't dominate the room, so I'm happy with it, and it wasn't expensive. And hanging there, I'll just go back and show you, is my, I've had this for years and years and years. I call it my Glastonbury coat. I've never actually been to the Glastonbury Festival, but this coat came from Glastonbury. I bought it in Glastonbury, and the dress underneath. I wore that coat actually to my father's funeral, just because when I put it on, I feel so good. It just goes on me like a hug. So I've got it hanging there because it cheers me up to see it. So that's it. Oh, and I found another Torran in a box, so I put that up there above the window. So that's the changes to my bedroom. So I'll go and sit in the chair and have a little chat with you. I found my glasses. I was going around the place going, where did I put my glasses? Anyway, I found them. What did I want to talk about? Well, two things really. One is that I'm doing okay, and thank you so much, all of you. My glasses are now steaming up. Thank you so much, all of you, for asking frequently how I'm doing. I so appreciate that, because, you know, often people say at the beginning, don't they, and then they kind of think after about 5 minutes that maybe you should be fine by now. But I know many of you have shared similar experiences and journeys as I've gone through, you know, becoming single relatively later in life, after maybe a traumatic time, whatever may have caused that. And it's navigating through that is not the easiest thing to do, is it, Stells? She kind of hears a tone in my voice, I think, sometimes. I'm not going to cry, Stells, it's all right. And she comes and sits by me. She's an empath. She's definitely an empath. So I've talked before about my way of dealing with that is to get on with things, and I fully appreciate that that's not always, you know, sometimes you have to face feelings. You can't just keep pushing them to one side. And I find my most difficult times of the day are first thing in the morning when I open my eyes, in that kind of semi-conscious state that you have between, you know, sleep and wake. And it's almost like you've forgotten in the night what's happening to you, and the realization comes back before the rest of your brain, maybe your practical brain that you know, I call it my Yorkshire brain, that tells me to get up and go for a walk and, you know, be grateful for what I've got and not mither on about, you know, the bad things. Before that part of the brain's awake, and it's that first few minutes is really tough sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. It's only been a couple of months, has it? Yeah, it's only been not even 2 months since I've lived here, but, you know. But predating those couple of months when I've actually been making this physical transition, of course there's been an emotional transition that's been going on for 2 or 3 years. And I know that's the same for many of you as well. It doesn't happen overnight, does it, this stuff? I mean, whether it's a bereavement or a separation, there's all stuff behind that, building up to that. Anyway, so to deal with that moment in the morning, if I wake up and I have that feeling, and sometimes I just lay there and have a little weep, I will be honest. I have the big advantage that Fred and Stella hear my eyes open. I'm sure they literally hear my eyelids lift, and they wake up. because they're both sleeping in the room with me. And they either come up in my face, or they start wrestling. I did a short, if you haven't seen it, if it hasn't come up on your notifications, I did my first ever YouTube short, or well, I filmed it. The stars of it are Stella and Fredfred wrestling, and actually when I filmed them it was at night, but that is pretty much what they usually do first thing every morning, that game that's on that short, that you can probably find if you go to my profile and look where it says shorts. So, that, just start your day with that cheers you up enormously. And the fact that I'm lucky I've got a dog, she needs a walk, I have to go out whatever the weather for her, and the minute I'm outside in the woods or up the lane that you just saw, I feel better, invariably. And that brings me to another little bit of advice that I got actually in the Facebook group, in the Slow Stitch with K3N Facebook group, from a lovely lady, I'm sure she won't mind me name checking her, called Maria, who said that she'd been told that on the days when it was bad, for whatever reason, when life was getting you down, or during those periods, that you set yourself 3 goals for the day, and they're very, not vague goals, but general goals, and that is to do something practical, to do something physical, and to do something creative. So the something practical could be removing wardrobes, or it could be doing the washing up, or it could be paying a bill, or it's just one small sort of admin or housekeeping type thing, or a DIY, whatever, just one small practical thing, tick. There's something physical, if you're able and you have the physical capacity, you could go for a walk. If you don't, you could do some yoga in your chair, or I don't know, sort out a cupboard. I mean, that could be practical and physical, couldn't it? Could you get away with that? 2 for the price of 1. And creative. I'm sure many of you watching are creatives. And sometimes the things that are dearest to us are the hardest to do in times of grief or trauma or sadness or depression or whatever. I know I found that when I lost my dad. I didn't stitch one single stitch for, I think it was about 18 months. I just couldn't, because stitching to me is so important, and such an emotional process, a process that's tied up with emotion, that was just too much to deal with, to stitch. So I knitted and I crocheted, I found something else which was creative but wasn't that core practice of mine that I just couldn't deal with. I'm really wittering, aren't I? Nobody's ever said in the comments that I witter too much, so you only have yourselves to blame. So if you can't do your regular thing, find another thing. Tear up some magazine pages, get a glue stick and make a collage, do some creative writing, do some stream of consciousness writing. Another friend of mine used to, I don't know if she still does, but did something called a brain dump every morning. She woke up and she just wrote whatever came into her head. And it's like you're sort of downloading it and you don't have to worry about it anymore. I mean, that also is a creative process in my book. So yes, 3 things every day, that's all you have to do. I mean, if you have to go to work or look after family or children or whatever, obviously those are responsibilities that you have to do. But I mean, for yourself, 3 things: something physical, something practical, and something creative. And thank you so much, Maria, because that has helped me enormously in those moments when I wake up and I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed and the wrestling hasn't started yet. I say to myself, right, Catherine, you get out of bed and you have 3 things to do today: practical, physical, creative. So I hope that's helpful to some of you, and thank you so much. I mean, I know I keep saying it, but I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for being here, whether you're just here for the Park Home Life or whether you're following any of the stitching projects and so on. And I hope you enjoyed the Untold Stories and the little walk and the active looking. And the moving around of furniture. There must be a limit on how many configurations I can come up with. No, I like it like this. I'll keep it like this for now. We'll see. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you again in the next episode. Thanks very much. Much love to you all. Take care. Bye-bye.